hierarchy on the inner side of life must proceed amidst the devastating racket of modern life in the great cities. Such is your problem and such is my problem as I seek to aid you. For me, there is also the problem of excessive expenditure of force as I attempt to reach each of you and to study each of you at certain intervals. There is the work, at long range, of reading your minds, of seeing your light, and of vitalizing your auras. This has not hitherto been the problem of the Eastern teachers, except in very rare cases. Those who are now working in the modern world under the masters of the wisdom have undergone a preliminary tuning up process, and a training in receptivity during an earlier incarnation, or incarnations. Forget not, therefore, that I also have a problem which I am willing to undertake for the sake of the needy world, and as my contribution to hastening the coming in of the new and more fruitful era. Let us, therefore, facilitate each other's efforts. I promise no quick results. I undertake to provide no spectacular unfoldments. The results rest entirely with you. They depend upon your patience, your exactness in detail, the discipline which you are willing to impose upon your lives and your self-forgetfulness. May I beg of you to leave results alone, and to work without attachment, for you know not with exactitude what are my goals for you. May I beg you to desist from that constant self-analysis, which is such an outstanding characteristic of the introspective, yet ambitious Occidental mystic. What, therefore, is the position I take? That I, one of a great group of disciples who from the humblest aspirant up to the highest member of the hierarchy link humanity with the spiritual kingdom, can teach you the ancient rules and give suggestions to you so that you may travel more rapidly along the path and arrive at greater usefulness to your fellowmen. There is not the slightest suggestion of authoritative pronouncement by a member of the hierarchy who must be obeyed and whose word is infallible. Let this be remembered, otherwise work will not be possible, elements of danger may enter in and the present effort come to naught. My anonymity has always been preserved, and will continue to be so, though members of this group of disciples know me for who I am. You know me as a teacher, as a Tibetan disciple and as an initiate of a certain degree, what degree being of no importance to you at all. It is the teaching that I shall give you which will matter. I am an initiate into the mysteries of being. That statement in itself conveys information to those who know. You know also that I am in a human body, and I am a resident of northern India. Let that suffice, and let not curiosity blind you to the teaching. We stand together in spiritual enterprise. All of you have voluntarily, and without pressure, stated your willingness to go forward into a more intensive spiritual life. This you must do in the freedom of your own souls, and through the power of your own intellects. You will follow such instructions as seem to you reasonable and right, but when you do choose to follow them, you will attempt to fulfill the requirements with exactitude. You will analyze and question the requirements which from time to time come from me, and you will accept no belief in their verbal inspiration. Language ever handicaps and limits. You will also be guided in your work by health and circumstance, and you will ever remember that masters are made through the achieving of mastery and not through obedience to any person. You will bear in mind that I, your teacher, am not constantly aware of your physical condition or daily doings. I concern not myself with the affairs of the personality, and those misguided aspirants who claim that the masters are forever telling them what to do and are guiding them in their personal affairs are still far from the grade of accepted discipleship. You will remember that the light will shine into a mind that is self-controlled, and free from the mental dominance of another mind. With these provisos clearly understood, let us pass on to the enunciation of certain principles and to a consideration of what it may be possible to do. First, let it be constantly remembered that the new discipleship is primarily an experiment in group work, and that its main objective is not the perfecting of the individual disciple in the group. I regard this statement as basic and essential. The individuals are intended to supplement each other and complement each other, and in the aggregate of their qualities should eventually provide a group capable of useful, spiritual expression, and one through which spiritual energy can flow for the helping of humanity. The work to be done is on the mental plane. The spheres of service of individual disciples remain the same as before, but to their differing fields of individual endeavor there will be added a group activity and life which will become more clear as time elapses. The first objective is, therefore, to weld and unify the group so that each person in it can work in close mental rapport and spiritual cooperation with the others. This inevitably takes time, and the success of this new effort on the part of the hierarchy will depend upon a non-critical attitude, and the outpouring of a spirit of love on the part of each member of the group. This will be fairly easy for some disciples to achieve, but very difficult for others. So many high-grade people today have an overdevelopment of the analytical mind. As time goes on, however, and if real effort is made, the welding process will make much progress. This, therefore, is our first effort, as it is the first effort of the group of every master, and the achievement of the hierarchy itself, group unity. Every disciple has to learn to subordinate his own ideas of personal growth to the group requirements, for in order to have a coordinated group, functioning as a serviceable unit, some disciples will have to hasten their progress in certain directions and others will have to slow down theirs temporarily to the pace of the majority. This will happen automatically, if the group identity is the dominant factor in the thoughts of each disciple, and desire for personal growth and for spiritual satisfaction is relegated to a secondary place. The groups within each ashram are intended to work together eventually, just as the various departments of some great organization work together effectively as a unit. They must function smoothly and intelligently. This will be possible when the individual members in the groups and the individual groups lose sight of their own identities in an effort to make this experiment of the hierarchy successful. The feelings, reactions, wishes and successes of the individual most emphatically do not count. Only that is regarded as of moment which will further group effort and enrich the group consciousness. Only that, for instance, attracts my attention, which brings more spiritual power to my group of disciples, or which increases its light or dims its radiance. You need to remember that I look at my groups of disciples always subjectively, and as a group. It is the total radiance which I see. It is the united rhythm which I note, and the united tone and color. It is the sound they collectively emit which I hear. May I reiterate that in one sense your individualities are of no interest or moment to me, except in so far as you raise or lower the group vibration. As personalities, you matter not to us, the teachers on the inner side. As souls you are of vital moment. Each disciple in the group of any master may have many weaknesses and limitations. These act as hindrances to others in the group. But, as souls, such disciples are somewhat awakened and alive, and have achieved a certain measure of alignment. So it is with all of you in my group. As souls, I cherish you and seek to aid and lift, to expand and enlighten. I would like here to emphasize one point, as we consider the individual in the group, and his group relations. Watch with care your thoughts and each other, and kill out at once all suspicion, all criticism, and seek to hold each other unwaveringly in the light of love. You have no idea of the potency of such an effort, or of its power to release each other's bonds, and to lift the group to an exceedingly high place. By the pure light of love for each other, you can draw nearer to me and to the teachers on the subjective side of life and arrive more rapidly at that gate which opens on the lighted way. You have the opportunity to demonstrate to each other the scientific value and power of love, regarded as a force in nature. Make this demonstration your endeavor. You will thus release for each other all that is needed to bring about potent and vital changes in the life patterns and purpose of the group members. Love is not a sentiment or an emotion, nor is it desire or a selfish motive for right action in daily life. Love is the wielding of the force which guides the worlds and which leads to the integration, unity and inclusiveness which impels deity itself to action. Love is a hard thing to cultivate, such is the inherent selfishness of human nature. It is a difficult thing to apply to all conditions of life, and its expression will demand of you the utmost you have to give, and the stamping out of your selfish personal activities. Disciples in the group of the Master have to love each other with intelligence and an abiding strength, and thus release that light and power which will eventually make the group of effective value in the world. As I work with you in the future, I shall not wait to wrap up the truths I have to say to each of you in such a way that they cannot hurt. I shall not in the future consider your personality, feelings, and reactions, because I count upon the sincerity of your purpose. It is perhaps wise to remember here that, as a general rule, no one believes what others may tell him, no matter how apparent the truth or how much the person may protest that he accepts that truth. Only those truths, which are wrought out individually in the crucible of experience, really penetrate into the living consciousness, and bear fruit. But in this group effort which we are undertaking, the fact that all in the group are made aware of what is said to the individual may prove most useful and produce much more rapid adjustments than could otherwise be the case, provided that, unitedly and in love, they will then help their fellow disciple to change the undesirable condition. I count on one thing only, my brothers, and that is your deep sincerity. It is not a negative thing, as some claim, to point out a fault or error. As the clear light of the soul pours in, it reveals the personality for what it is. If true dispassion is practiced, this group of disciples can see things as they are and remain untouched by the revelation of the desirable or the undesirable qualities. If you are depressed or irritated or hurt by such revelation, it indicates a basic lack of dispassion and proves attachment to the personality and to the opinions of others. Secondly, it is essential that all disciples in an ashram should be contemplatives, but contemplatives in the occult sense, and not the mystical. In any meditation work which you are doing or may in the future do, your aim should be to achieve, as rapidly as possible, the highest point in the meditation process, passing quickly through the stages of concentration, alignment and meditation to contemplation. Having achieved that high point, you should strive to preserve it and should learn thus to function as a soul in its own world, contemplating the world of energies in which all initiates work and in which you each must some day in this life or another take your place. This status, if I may call it by such a name, must be carefully striven for, accurately observed when in any way attained, and an exact record of impressions kept. You should, therefore, constitute a group of active contemplatives, and the result will be facilitated if you will ponder upon and struggle for the first condition of your group existence, group unity. Third, this group unity, which will have its roots in united group meditation or in the contemplative life, wherein the soul knows itself